everybody, it is your Professor Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this AoS general class, well, we're going to try something new. This was a viewer requested thing. This is very rough. I don't know how I want to do these on the channel in the future, but here it is. A Beat Rocco Bat Rep as a slideshow? So first things first, I got to go and play a nice, fun game with a friend of mine. His name is Bradley. He goes by a bunch of online nicknames and things that are very silly and will be seen throughout pretty much all this presentation. Don't harp on him too bad. But this was a nice game of Maw Tribes versus my Stormcast. This will be on Tabletop Simulator. Okay, we're across the country from each other, but this is how we get to play. My list is a Knights Excelsior list, melee Stormcast that I wanted to try out because it seems really freaking fun. Knights Excelsior makes my Paladins, which you'll see I have a unit of Annihilators, be my battle line. My grand strategy of Hold the Line is one of my battle line lives at the end of the battle. My Triumph is inspired for +1 to wound. My General is actually the first time me taking this is the Lord Imperator, which I've got the model, it's painted, it just hasn't seen the table yet, so I'm like, oh, this is a good way to try it out. I took the command trait Shock and Awe, and the artifact Mirror Shield so that he doesn't die immediately before he gets to do his one cool thing of bringing down what'll be my Annihilators just outside of 7 inches of my opponent's units, instead of the normal 9 from Deep Strike. Then I've got Karazai the Scarred, to be a nice melee threat for me here, hopefully getting a few pluses to run and charge throughout the battle. A Knight and Canner for that awesome auto-unbind ability once per game. Lord Relictor for less weapons, probably on the Dragon, maybe on the Annihilators or the Cats. It's a really good prayer. And I also gave him the artifact, the Hammer of Might, because again, these aren't necessarily tournament lists, so I wanted a cool artifact in there in case he has to fight his way out of a problem. And for my battle line units, I've got the unit of Annihilators and 2 units of Sequitors maxed out with Great Maces, because the Primes can take Great Maces in addition to the 2 normal members of the unit. Then I've got a unit of Evocators on Celestial Dracolines, because they're my personal favorite unit in the whole of Stormcast. I adore the models, and I pretty much keep them as a pet unit in whatever Stormcast list I play. And then the Stormstrike Chariot, which is slowly becoming my second favorite model in the range because it's just so fun. And I've got that wrapped up in a command entourage for the extra artifact and a battle regiment to keep me at 4 drops. And I get the Holy Command Steadfast March for a run and charge once per game. In 2nd edition, I had even converted up a Knight Heralder to make sure I had run and charge in my army because it's just such a useful ability. And even once per game, it's still really good for what it does. And my opponent, Bradley, here brought the Underguts, he brought the shooting meta with the Grand Strategy Dominating Presence. Also took the +1 to wound and inspired. And the thing about this is he's bringing a gun line. He wants to play 40k when I'm playing AoS. Comes in at 5 drops with a Grand Battery and a Battle Regiment for all the Ironblasters, and having to have his Butcher in the Grand Battery for a once per game +1 to hit or a free Unleash Hell. And there's tech here. And Underguts, you've seen it pop up every now and then as either being really, really bad or being really, really good. And it's just that everything's so swingy on the 4 up to hit on the Ironblaster and the D6 damage. And there's a lot of moving parts. And when everything's moving together in concert, this army will win a tournament. And the Kragnos thing gives it a legitimate melee threat. And we'll say more why Bradley took this when I talk the battle plan, and then our strategies after this. So first, the battle plan: power struggle This is 5 objectives set up as basically like a big old X in the middle of the board. This is the battle plan people remember more for how it was FAQ'd to be easier to understand. The thing is, when you hold an objective here, you have to hold it for 2 of your player turns to score it. Not like my turn, then my opponent goes, and if I lose it in their turn, I'm screwed. The FAQ lets me, if I take it first, my opponent takes it from me, and then I take it back, I count as scoring it. And this is one of those battle plans that it's hold 1 point for, well, 1 objective point here to score a point, hold 2 objectives to score a second point, hold more than your opponent to score a third point, and then score your battle tactic for 2 more. And it's weird because the first battle round, you can't hold anything for 2 turns. So it's just you're scoring more if you can hold 3 objectives. And then your battle tactic. So it's rough and it's a little weird, but tournaments play it. And it's fun. And I actually win the roll off and finish deploying first. And I go for a more conservative approach here. I'm screening out with sequitors that I can send up into the middle of the objective, and I don't mind throwing them away. My chariot and my evocators are on the flanks more, with my dragon in the middle to just run up. My goal is to run and charge something and pin it in place. My opponent kind of split his army. You know, we've got Kragnos on the right flank with the big gun line, and then we've got 2 units of lead belchers on the left. It's not looking great for me if he keeps shooting me over and over and over. And this is why we get to my strategy here. Because I'm seeing all this, right? And I'm like, okay, this is the deployment. This is how we went. I want to split my opponent's forces right up the middle seeing this, how he deployed. I want to give away first turn just because he's a shooting army. And I don't want to be double turned. Because again, the more chances he gets to shoot me concurrently, the more the swingy dice that generally come with d6 damage and a 4-up to hit on a lot of his stuff goes away. You know, just by the law of averages. If he gets to roll more dice, eventually more things will hit and more damage will happen to me as he rolls higher eventually. And I need to stop that eventually from ever taking place. And I see this, and I want to focus on his weaker flank, his left flank, my right, because I want to avoid Kragnos, because I know he's a good threat. I do. I want to pin him in place here with my run and charge chariot and my evocators on my right flank. I want to pin him so he cannot outscore me on objectives, because ogres have the might makes right rule, where they count as more models than they actually are. And Kragnos at his top bracket can count for like 30 or something, and I don't even have 30 models in my army. So I need to pin him way the hell back, eat up his shooting, just try to survive that opening salvo and move on. And I cannot let Kragnos charge my dragon because of his cool mortal wound rule on impact hits. Bradley, his main thing is shoot the hell out of Rocco. Again, he wants to play 40k. I want to play Age of Sigmar. Now, here's the cool tech. The Blubber Grub spell, right? It lets the Ironblasters charge as if they were regular ogre monsters. So, ogres have a rule that when they charge, they do impact hits, usually on a 6-up. If you're a monster or if you're a large enough unit, it turns into a 4-up. With Kragnos making them have a 3d6 charge, that's the unmodified charge roll. So if he rolled an 18, he gets to roll, then get 18 dice, roll them, and every 4-up is a mortal wound to me. And as Stormcast, the way you deal with them is mortal wounds, because it's such an elite army, and they generally don't have a mortal wound save, except for maybe one sub-faction and an artifact. And even then, it's a 6-up. So mortal wounds, great way to defeat Stormcast, and here it is right there, along with shooting with a lot of good rend. And Bradley just wants to live his Napoleonic dreams on the field of battle. He wants this to be Waterloo, but he's the British. As I march up the board, and you know what? he's right, because I'm a melee army. I gotta walk to him, except for a unit or two I can deep strike. Like my annihilators, they're staying in the sky, but everything else is on the table for me. And if he can shoot me long enough and often enough, again, that law of averages will play out, and I just won't have an army at the end of this. So first round, the Ogres go, and this is before movement. This is just what had happened was his Butcher failed the spell. So the whole super awesome combo couldn't happen, and Bradley didn't panic, but he played it more cautiously. You know, they barely move up from here, and he had a choice where the frontmost Iron Blaster could either run and get on the middle objective or shoot. And he chose to shoot all four of his Iron Blasters at me and try to screen me off the two side objectives, which is fair. And for his battle tactic, he took the one where it's a monster holds an objective without being contested by an enemy monster. So Kragnos, again, we're playing cool, we're playing calm, we're playing smart. He's going to shoot at me with what he can, not throw Kragnos out where I can get an easy charge and kill him. All right. And at the end of the day, he does 4 wounds to Karazai. And, you know, it hurt. It didn't really bracket me. And he tried, you know? And sometimes the dice just don't do what you wanted to do. So, again, you play more conservatively and you try to make the best out of the situation. And this is the picture. This is right before I start charging him. Where, again, you can see how he moved up, how he tried to screen me out. I ran and charged my Chariot. I actually failed the heroic healing attempt on my dragon. So instead, I did the prayer from my lovely Relictor to heal him instead. He's actually got a wound on him right now. And again, I moved to secure the middle objective because the score is 2-0 right now. This will ensure I have a lead. A slim one, but I'll have a lead. And I could try to go for some longer charges with my Drac Alliance that can natively re-roll their charge attempt, who did get off their +1 to wound spell. And my Chariot was the recipient of my run and charge. So it's looking to just go in there, slam into some Ogre shooting, keep them tied up so they can't get a good cannonade onto my dragon. And I can try to just pin him behind that wall of meat where it's either you're going to move all your stuff out of the way for Kragnos to charge, or you can shoot. This is the option I give you. Neither of these are good options, but that's what I'm going to make you have to choose from. And with my shooting, I'm actually able to, I can look at Kragnos with my 18 inches, or I can look at one of these Iron Blasters. And I think to myself, now is the time to get a little aggressive here. I get so aggressive, I actually bring in my Annihilators. Because I'm like, you know what? Kragnos isn't screened from behind. If I can just pin him there and then not worry about him charging anybody, this sounds great. And you're going to notice a wound marker here above Kragnos that says 6. It's on an Iron Blaster. Kragnos has a rule where at the end of each phase that he takes damage, he can damage other units around him. That affects friendly units. So at the end of my movement phase, when the Annihilators came down, did mortal wounds to Kragnos, they did 1. He screams, and he hits the Iron Blaster. When they charge in and do impact hits, end of the charge phase, he screams, hurt the Iron Blaster. And he just kept getting pissed and hurting more of his stuff than I did damage to his own things. And then I made the charge with the Chariot, with my Dragon, with my Evocators into those Lead Belchers to try to steal that point. And then my Evocators, this is a role that I had to showcase. Because again, my dice, man. You can't blame him, but that's the Rider attacks without the Prime, because he has a special weapon. And I rolled 6 ones out of 8 attacks for my to hit roll. And it happens. And again, part of what I teach on this channel is to play so the dice aren't that huge of a factor. But also, the reason I have developed this whole strategy and teaching and why I tell people to do this is my dice rolls are notoriously bad. They are. They get hotter as the game goes on, which is why an army like Deepkin is great for me. Because by Battleround 3, I'm cooking with gas. Not Battleround 1. Thankfully, the unit leader, my prime, the mounts, the cats, and my lightning blasts finished off the unit, but it was just funny to watch and see that I did that freaking bad. So I had to throw that in there too. And then, Carnage was had. Kragnos got so upset because I put wounds on him in the combat phase, he actually killed an Ironblaster for me. So now Bradley is down the Ironblaster that Kragnos killed, the Ironblaster my dragon killed. My Chariot put a lot of wounds and messed around with his other Ironblaster. He's down two, and that was the other thing too, because I got to split my attacks a bit here, where I killed Lead Belchers. I put a wound on that other Ironblaster. Kragnos put a wound onto it for me too, because he's such a nice guy. And I score 3 points because I scored my battle tactic of running 3 units, which are my 3 foot heroes way back here you can't see. And I hold more objectives because actually at this moment I hold 4 objectives because of how all my charges went. And I was able to put myself where, like, you know what, it'd be nice if the Drac Alliance were able to charge in and do work. I didn't need it, but now, because I took a nice calculated risk, it's paid out for me pretty well. And don't get me wrong, the Drac Alliance got shot up in an Unleash Hell, but the one Dracoline lived with a wound, so I still have a full unit. And then the roll-off happens. I win priority, and I go for broken ranks here to go after the other unit of Lead Belchers, because I'm looking at this as I'm scared that I'm going to screw myself out of battle tactics, and I need to go for the easier ones now. And also, my Annihilators pitting Kragnos didn't happen. It didn't. I tried. They died horribly. And I need to think of some kind of a contingency here. And also, I'm like, oh, the wizard being there, if he can't blubber grub, that's great. But I don't want to kill him because I want to save him for an easy slay the warlord later. So I'm like, I'll charge in 1 cat, see what happens. Maybe I do good on the lightning blast, whatever. And I set up for killing the Lead Belchers. I want to do it with my dragon, but the Jack Lions are there for moral support if they need it. And what ends up happening is my dragon goes ham, and he's now killed 2 units, and he's at +2 to charge and +2 to run. And he started to rack up some bonuses here. And I actually killed the damn Butcher. Because what happened was the target that the Drac Alliance charged was the Lead Belchers. They died, so I still got a 3-inch pile-in, which is what I was, again, originally planning on. I got my 1 cat in. He overperformed, rolled very hot, and then the Lightning Blast finished off the poor Ogre. And then I'm just having a duel with my Chariot into his 1 Ironblaster, and I'm like, all right, I need to just secure my stuff. I'm also thinking ahead for my grand strategy. If you see right back here, if you're following my mouse, there is a Sequitur. I'm slowly hiding my Sequiturs so that I can score my grand strategy and it ensure 3 points to me. And again, this is a very, very grim position, but Kragnos is worth the 700 and whatever points. He can kill all my stuff. And I just need to position my Drac Alliance as a screen now to save my dragon and hopefully not get double turned. But I'm up 9-2 right now, which is really nice because I also scored a bonus point for doing the kill a battle line battle tactic because I did it with a monster. All right, Ogres, they're trying to swing back and they need huge charges here. What ends up happening is, he's got the one Ironblaster and he's got Kragnos. Kragnos can charge. We were not, no, we didn't know that the cauldron was impassable. So we just were like, he's going to try charging over it. It's whatever. And if we wanted to go around, I'm like, it'd be hard. It's like, nah, man, I just need this 11-inch. He's like, but I'm gonna go and roll the Iron Blaster charge first. And on 3d6, he rolled a 17 with the Iron Blaster, and had nowhere to go but my Draco-Lions. And what would have been the perfect Kragnos charge to kill 600 points of my army and be erasing everything that he could. That's the problem. And he's also going for a conquer to try to take one of my objectives off of me. So that's just rough. Rough in the worst way. Because then he goes to roll for Kragnos and gets a 9-inch charge and can't get to my dragon. Sometimes you need to... what the important charge is. He did not need to roll the Iron Blaster first, but different people have different superstitions. Some people like saving the important charges to the end. I like doing them first. In this case, it would have worked out if he rolled the 17. Next time, it might not. But Kragnos goes and murders the hell out of my cats. And the unsung hero of all this is the Ironblaster named Gas Gas Gas, where he's able to actually try to do something. Yeah, the cheeky conquer doesn't work, but Gas 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 is the MVP here. Kills my chariot. He's horribly wounded himself, trying to do anything he can to keep this game even remotely close, right? And then the Stormcast explosion rule comes in. And just like that, doing 4 wounds, my chariot took out the MVP and became my MVP in the process. And it was a crazy turn of events. You never plan to spike, 6s do mortal wounds kind of roll. But man, that felt good. It was as crazy as Kragnos killing an Iron Blaster. But right now, through no fault of Bradley's, it's looking rough. It's 9-3 Stormcast. He scores a point for holding an objective because that was always his. We weren't tied on that. And it's just, what do you do from here? How can you even try to come back from this? And really, you need the double turn. And unfortunately, he didn't get it. So, yes, again, we already mentioned, now we know that Cauldron's impassable terrain. Even with my charge, I flew over the damn thing. But then I'm like, hey, do you want to just perch up my dragon on this Cauldron? Because it just looks really cool as this. I'm swooping in. And sometimes you got to remember, we're playing with little plastic action figures. And it just, even digitally, that looks pretty freaking cool. And he agreed, and we had an honor duel. That Iron Blaster was not long for the world. Between shooting, melee, it was just gonna die. So this is the main event here. If Kragnos could kill my dragon, he still had hope. I was a little wounded, I'll admit. But I came in hard and fast and like a wrecking ball, murdered that dragon-hating son of a gun. I don't care if you killed all the Draconith eggs before, buddy. Karazai's got your number now. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very, very convincing win for the Stormcast. And then we got the final scoreboard here. And again, The table is the Deanoch table. Uh, the mods used to find all of these models are just honestly, you can just search the Steam library for them. No one's keeping them secret. To get good 3D models for this. And this is how the score played out. I got my hold the line, and it's funny because the score is not as indicative as what could have happened. Because that's the thing. If Bradley got the turn for Battleround 3, he keeps it a game. And for me getting the turn, it's just I gotta close out. If this was a tournament, because that's the other thing too. I also killed a monster, and I did it with a monster. I scored all of the bonus points I could. And if this was a tournament, I have the battle tactic that I could do of like have 2 units in his territory, and then I can conquer the one objective that he still has. So that's very easy for me to do. So I'll score all my secondaries, all my points. I'll max out my score. And we called it there, but you know, if Bradley, that's the thing. It's one of those things where he picked a swinging army, and there are times where underguts again will 5-0 at a tournament if the dice are hot and with you that day. But that was the fun of this, is it could have swung either way. And then I saw the tipping point. I was able to, again, because I split him up. I split up his army. I made him be out of position with Kragnos to force that long charge. So he couldn't do what he wanted to do. And, it's how you play a melee army versus a shooting army. Have some kind of movement tricks that every melee army should have in one form or another. And force your opponent to be out of position with, whatever he has. Try to gum up their shooting or her. Gum up whatever their shooting units are. So they have to shoot into something you don't necessarily mind losing, like the Chariot. And then sometimes you're going to get something crazy and unexpected, like Kragnos killing an Ironblaster on his own, or your own Chariot blowing up and finishing off an amazing melee duel between the other Ironblaster and itself. Because that was the thing. All of our stuff, like hit and wounded, that was just really good armor saves back and forth as he slowly chipped me down. And it was a fun time, and I had a blast playing Bradley. And if you like this battle report and this recap, like, comment, subscribe, flame me in the comments because I went for the cool picture of my dragon on the cauldron, and you're like, Rocco, that's not a rule. How dare you have fun? But these are the types of games I'd like to play. Goofy, different lists, trying new things. Because if you only play the meta net list, you'll never fully learn the army and what the other stuff can do. And when that one build gets nerfed, I'd rather be on the cutting edge of finding something new. And this was fun. And at the end of the day, that's what Warhammer should be. Fun. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming to class today. And as I'd like to say at the end of all of our videos, class dismissed. Bye.